Hello, I'm HomoArrosor, and today I am going to show you exactly why the sequence of global technological events was deliberately changed right before our eyes to prioritize verified humans over market tokenomics. You know, I previously predicted a very specific rollout for this massive network, but standing here right now in July 2026, the reality unfolding in front of us reveals a monumental, globally coordinated shift. It's something much, much bigger than any single ecosystem. Today, we're going to unpack the factual reality of why the mainnet Launchpad was deliberately held back. And more importantly, we're going to uncover why building an army of verified human identities suddenly became the absolute, undeniable, most urgent priority for global capital markets. It's a fascinating pivot, and the clues have been hiding in plain sight. Let's get right into it. Here is exactly how we're going to break down this architectural shift today. First, we'll look at the Launchpad market engine. Second, we'll examine the sequence reversal. Third, we dive into DTC's institutional clock. Fourth, we'll map out the multi-chain economy. Fifth, we'll see how they are solving the identity bottleneck. And finally, number 6, we'll reveal the final confirmation signal.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the Launchpad market engine. Let's look at the infrastructure that is already built and sitting right in front of us.
Now, when you look at the Launchpad, you have to understand that this is not just a mere distribution test. It's not some sandbox experiment. What we are looking at is a fully functioning end-to-end lifecycle market engine. It's completely built out. Notice how there is a total separation between the initial launch price of an asset and the live market price. The interface itself tracks these prices in less than 1-minute intervals. That is high-frequency readiness. You've got an all-price chart, you've got a buy more function, and you've got a direct liquidity pool gateway baked right into the architecture. And here's the kicker. Hitting that buy more button actually triggers a live automated market maker swap transaction. That proves without a shadow of a doubt that the capital rotation cycle is active and operational. This engine is designed to manage a token's entire economic life after it gets issued. It absolutely confirms that the technical infrastructure for live market execution is fully primed and ready to go. It is locked and loaded.
To prove this isn't just theory, let's look at some actual hard data. My own slice test data perfectly confirms this live market execution. I received 766 slice tokens, and the cost was exactly 1,152 test pi. So if you do the math on that, the effective price at launch was 1.50. But almost instantly, the live market adjusted that price to 1.70. Think about what that actually means. It confirms that a distinct, highly reactive secondary trading market is operating perfectly in the background right now. We saw the transition from the very first IRA test to this slice test, and it completely refined the distribution process. It proved that these tokens are actively surviving, reacting, and trading post-launch based on real supply and demand metrics. So the conclusion here is undeniable. The Launchpad is absolutely ready to go live. The engine works perfectly. So the million-dollar question is, why was it deliberately paused? Well, the reason it was held back is tied directly to a massive external pivot that no one was expecting.
That brings us to Section 2, the sequence reversal. This is where things get incredibly interesting. For a long time, the old predicted sequence of events seemed totally straightforward, right? We all thought it would go like this. Mainnet Launchpad first to get the tokens out there, KYC as a service second to verify people over time, and node computing third to build out the decentralized backend. It made logical sense for a closed ecosystem. But the actual execution completely, literally reversed this entire logic. Instead of rolling out the market, we saw PiVerify, PiSign-in, the Solohost beta, and these incredibly complex protocol V25 and V26 cryptographic upgrades rapidly deployed first. They took the internal token ecosystem, the part everyone was waiting for, and they put it on ice. They essentially skipped the line to build this massive external identity bridge. They intentionally sidelined their own internal economy to prioritize external human identity and decentralized computing. Why would you delay your own market? Because something much larger demanded it. If we rewind just a few months back to February 2026, the founder's speech was laser-focused on finalizing the mainnet ecosystem for ecosystem tokens. The talk was all about integrating decentralized exchanges and automated market makers. But buried in that messaging, there was a hidden clue. A brief mention that KYC as a service would arrive in the near term. Fast forward to June and July, and the deployment of PiVerify on June 28th wasn't just a secondary nice-to-have feature. It became the main event. The entire identity verification engine was suddenly externalized. Why? Because an overwhelming force outside of their immediate ecosystem suddenly demanded it. The reality of the June and July deployments proved that PiVerify and node computing took total precedence, while they kept the Launchpad firmly locked in testnet. They pivoted hard, and we need to look outside the bubble to see what forced that pivot. Which leads us to Section 3, DTC's institutional clock. This is the external force we need to talk about. Let's look at the timeline of the DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. These are the people who handle quadrillions of dollars in traditional financial settlements. In May 2026, the DTCC established a very strict blueprint. And, right on schedule, literally just days ago on July 15th, they executed production trades of tokenized DTC-held securities. We are talking about real equities, real ETFs, and real U.S. treasuries. This was not a sandbox test. This wasn't a drill. They utilized actual collateral, actual repo markets, and real delivery versus payment mechanisms. Traditional finance is migrating on-chain at an unstoppable breakneck speed. With their formal tokenization service officially launching this October and a direct connection to the Stellar public blockchain officially scheduled for the first half of 2027, the window of time completely collapsed. This accelerated July and October institutional clock is the exact reason why the sequence had to shift. The global financial system doesn't wait for anyone, and the infrastructure had to be ready to catch what they are about to unleash. Let's look at exactly what they are unleashing in Section 4, the multi-chain economy.
What we are looking at here is the massive architecture being built to handle $4.7 quadrillion in assets. It's a brilliant divide-and-conquer strategy that works seamlessly across 4 highly distinct layers. Layer 1 is the DTC itself, which strictly maintains the legal CUSIP rights and overarching investor protection. They are the ultimate legal authority. Then it moves to Layer 2, Hyperledger Besu. This is the Ethereum-based permissioned environment that handles the actual internal execution and the minting of the tokens. Layer 3 is the Canton network. Think of this as the institutional privacy layer. It synchronizes these massive financial players securely without broadcasting their private trades to the whole world. And finally, Layer 4 is Stellar. Stellar is the open network explicitly designated to push these highly regulated, tokenized assets out into the wild, to global, non-custodial wallets. It is a perfectly synchronized multi-chain ecosystem designed to move traditional finance onto the blockchain. Now, I really want to address a massive misconception here because it's absolutely crucial to understand. People hear that $4.7 quadrillion are moving onto these chains, and they automatically assume that the price of native tokens like CCD and XLM are going to instantly explode to astronomical numbers. That is fundamentally flawed logic. The actual settlement assets, the quadrillions of dollars, are tokenized deposits, regulated stablecoins, and central bank digital currencies. The native tokens, they are simply the toll booths on the highway. Let me give you a perfect example. The Canton network prices its operational fees in dollars, but it burns CCD to actually execute the transaction. This keeps operational costs incredibly low and predictable for massive institutions. Within this multi-chain economy, the CCD and XLM tokens act strictly as network utility and operational gas. They run the rails, they are not the principal assets themselves.
So, if the rails are built and the assets are ready, what's the problem? That brings us to Section 5, solving the identity bottleneck. This is where everything clicks into place. The UK's AG7 working group explicitly identified a critical, fatal flaw in this entire $4.7 quadrillion setup. Think about it. When a heavily regulated asset moves from the DTCC, gets minted through Besu, runs through Canton, and finally lands on the public Stellar blockchain, the receiving wallet at the very end of that pipeline cannot just be some anonymous string of code. Traditional finance requires rigorous KYC. It's non-negotiable. But currently, human identity is trapped in fragmented KYC silos all over the world. A bank in London can't verify a user in Tokyo without exposing raw, highly sensitive personal data across public networks, which is a massive security and privacy violation. This inability to cross-verify human identity across institutional ledgers creates an immediate, massive bottleneck. It mandates the creation of a universally registered wallet system. If you want traditional finance on a public chain, you absolutely must solve the identity problem first.
And this is exactly where Protocol V25 and V26 become the ultimate skeleton key for global finance. Scheduled right now for July 22, 2026, Pi is introducing the exact same zero-knowledge primitives, specifically BN254 and the Poseidon algorithm, that are natively used by Ethereum and Hyperledger Besu. Simultaneously, Stellar's Protocol 25 upgrade does the exact same thing on their end. Do you see what's happening? Suddenly, all three networks are speaking the exact identical mathematical language. Because of this cryptographic alignment, a verified identity proof generated on one network can be instantly and trustlessly verified on institutional and public ledgers without ever revealing the underlying private data. The math proves you are a verified human without doxing who you are. This isn't a coincidence. This perfectly aligns the cryptography across the entire institutional pipeline. When you view it through this lens, you can clearly see the precise human onboarding protocol they've been building all along. DTCC and Stellar require a massive, pre-verified human base to actually receive these tokenized assets. You can't launch the assets if there's no one legally allowed to hold them. Enforcing the strict one-person, one-account mandate, pushing millions of people through fast-track KYC, issuing non-custodial mainnet wallets, and rolling out Pi sign-in, all of that was preparation. PiVerify is the ultimate product of this entire sequence. It operates as a ready-to-deploy, zero-knowledge identity oracle that feeds verified humans directly into the institutional multi-chain architecture we just talked about. They are supplying the single most essential missing piece, the verified human layer for the entire global digital economy. Which brings us to our final point, Section 6, the final confirmation signal. But before we look at the very end, we have to note what they did right before the internal tokens could launch. They aggressively opened the solo host beta, essentially bringing machine intelligence directly on-chain. Third-party AI applications can now utilize the raw computing power of the top 100 network nodes. This is brilliant because it creates a seamlessly integrated ecosystem where these newly verified human identities can directly interact with and directly compensate autonomous AI agents and robotic computing power right on the institutional rails. The deployment of node computing bridges the gap between verified human users and vast institutional-grade machine productivity. The humans are verified and the machines are plugged in. So why was the fully functioning mainnet Launchpad saved for absolutely last? It comes down to pure strategic timing and raw economic motive. When the institutional asset pipelines from DTCC to Stellar go fully live, they are going to require a massive influx of retail participants to provide liquidity and adoption. Releasing the Launchpad at that exact moment, with its built-in decentralized exchanges, automated market makers, and live liquidity pools, triggers an undeniable economic force: price FOMO. Fear of missing out becomes the ultimate catalyst. It's the bait. The allure of the live market is what aggressively pulls billions of unverified smartphone users through the friction of the KYC process and into these registered wallets. The market engine is the catalyst that cements the mass migration of global humans on-chain. Connecting the present and the future, the final confirmation signal won't just be an announcement. The ultimate signal will be the exact moment a verified human, using a registered wallet, securely executes a smart contract with a tokenized U.S. Treasury moving from the DTCC straight through Besu and onto Stellar. That is the moment the present and future of finance completely merge. The Launchpad was never actually delayed. It was precisely chambered for the exact moment the traditional financial world demanded a verified human layer via zero-knowledge proofs. The institutional infrastructure is built. The cryptographic locks are aligned. The humans are being verified. So the only question left is, when the floodgates finally open on this $4.7 quadrillion market, where will your verified identity stand?